Good evening. The Jackson Public School Board meeting is now called to order. Board members, we have 6 members present. We have 2 members on the phone, Dr. Hairston and Dr. Luckett, and 4 members here in the boardroom. Mr. Figures will be joining us momentarily for a full board. We have all had an opportunity, therefore we have a quorum. We have all had an opportunity to review the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Mrs. Johnson has moved. Mrs. Thompson has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. Next, we've all had an opportunity to review the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the December 6, 2022 regular board meeting minutes?
I so move. Second.
Mrs. Thompson has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. The motion carries. And just like that, we are on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Green.
Thank you, Dr. Sivak. Good evening, everyone, to all of our JPS administrators and team members, our scholars, our parents, community partners, all of those who are joining us this evening. We'll begin, as we typically do, with our highlights reel from the instructional television team. Take it away.
'Tis the season for giving, and a local organization and company are doing just that for some children in need. Operation Warm and Federal Express donated winter coats and other supplies to scholars at Johns Hopkins Elementary School on December 9th. The JPS JROTC program celebrated its 10th annual JROTC Gala on December 16th.
This is a grand celebration of the accomplishments and contributions of all our JROTC cadets and our JROTC instructors.
More than 900 participants were joined by their parents, staff members, and administrators. The keynote speaker was attorney Jennifer Riley Collins. To celebrate progress in computer science education, JPS scholars participated in innovative challenges at Callaway High School, aimed at helping them discover the computer scientists within themselves. Activities included coding, exploring the impact of computer science on careers in Mississippi, and teaching a computer how to dance. The main purpose of the expo was to provide scholars with an opportunity to explore physical computing and to implement computer science leader skills and standards during the district's celebration of CS Ed Week. The Jackson Middle College High School program is the district's newest advanced academics program. It features a partnership with Jackson State University to establish a Grow Your Own Mathematics Educator Development component, allowing participants to complete the first 2 years of college while in high school, tuition-free. The middle college, recently endorsed by the Mississippi Department of Education, is catered towards highly motivated, disciplined, rising 11th grade scholars interested in mathematics. Jackson Public Schools hosted its 2nd annual Night of Stars Gala on December 8th at the Ice House in Jackson. During the gala, Superintendent Dr. Eric L. Green, Board President Ed Sivak, and Deputy Superintendent Dr. Michael Cormack Jr. acknowledged several phenomenal team members for their important contributions to JPS. Honorees were nominated and selected based on data points from their work performance. Each award recipient received a Rock Star trophy. Those in attendance were treated to an elegant evening of food, fellowship, and live entertainment. For more information about Jackson Public Schools, please visit our website at www.jackson.k12.ms.us. Follow us on Facebook at Jackson Public Schools, on Twitter at JPS District, Comcast Channels 18 and 19, and YouTube at www.youtube.com/JPSITV.
Thank you, as always, to the team for those wonderful highlights. It's really nice to kind of reminisce some of those wonderful events that have happened throughout our district. Board members, as you know, we held a community forum last week to review some of the data and findings from the consulting group, WestEd, who we brought in to conduct a needs and assets assessment and to help us to do a deep review of the district's fiscal health. The WestEd team reviewed a lot of data from across our district and conducted a series of stakeholder engagements to develop some initial recommendations for us to create a sustainable and equitable fiscal position. Now, while they were asked to develop a plan of action, while they weren't asked to develop a plan of action for us, they did provide some recommendations to help us to move along and to develop the strategic resourcing planning. My team and I are planning a series of stakeholder community engagements over the next few months to help us to identify and shape some of the options that would go into a clear plan for utilizing our resources here in the district, but all in order to meet the needs of our scholars and families. And so, as you know, those needs were exacerbated as a result of the pandemic, and so we're certainly benefiting from the COVID relief funding that we have right now. But those funds, I know you know, and hopefully community members know, those funds are set to expire in 2024. And so the resulting fiscal cliff from those funds going away, coupled with our declining enrollment and declining state funding, further underscore the need for this kind of strategic planning, focused and transparent planning that would help us to better structure our district and meet the needs of our scholars and community. And we certainly believe we can get there, but we know that over the next several months we'll need to do some pretty robust and disciplined planning. But looking forward to that. So I would hope that, and I plan to in the next, in early January, to come back to you with the stakeholder engagement, the roadmap for that over the next several months, just so that you will have an opportunity to plug in and support that work, but also to track those conversations as we're hearing from and working along with members of our community. I do want to double click on some of the things that were shown in the highlights reel. One of the things that was not named there, and I want to thank each of you for greatly, is the time that you spent in engagement in the board retreat that we held a couple of weeks ago, which now seems like months ago, doesn't it? Just a couple of weeks ago. I hope that you found that time to be worthy of your time and that it helped to advance our collective work here in Jackson Public Schools. As always, I'm very appreciative of your collaborative spirit, the continued commitment to excellence, and the service to Jackson Public Schools, to our scholars, and to families. As you all know, through the day that we spent together, we focused a bit on our financial reports, looked a bit at some more data on some of our buildings and the facilities and the condition of those facilities, and spent a little bit of time reviewing some of our academic programming, and especially the alternative programs. And so again, I just want to say thank you to each of you for showing up and being completely present and lifting your voices and sharing your insights and pushing our thinking as we seek to better do our work here in Jackson Public Schools. So just wanted to acknowledge you for that time that you devoted, and thank you for that. Again, the Night of Stars was just amazing. It was a great night to celebrate our people. As you know, we we used data to help inform and identify just a few of our rock stars from across the district. There are many, many more that we look forward to supporting over time, acknowledging over time. I think people had a good time. That was certainly our goal, to give them that wow experience. We celebrate athletes and musicians and all those folks with these big elaborate Grammys and ESPYs and all of these big award ceremonies. And so we wanted to do a bit of that for our educators and really elevate the experience of being acknowledged as a high performer. It's connected to our commitment, number 5, in our strategic plan, which is a culture of accountability and excellence. Quite often, we think about that in terms of the stick, all of the things that we might not be getting right, and the work that we've got to do to correct people's behavior and to give feedback, critical feedback to improve. But part of accountability is also acknowledging when we get it right, and celebrating when we get it right, and doing that authentically. And so that was our effort, and funded by the Kellogg Foundation as a part of their support of our strategic efforts. We're just very pleased to have this opportunity. I want to thank the Planning Committee and all those who volunteered to help make it such a success. Looking forward already to the 3rd annual, and we know it will be even bigger and better. And so y'all just stay tuned for more on that. It's become a hot ticket, which is pretty cool, that the hot ticket in town is Jackson Public Schools event. Speaking of hot tickets, the JROTC Gala did not disappoint. Yet again, I think this was our 10th annual, or 10th gala. Just a wonderful celebration of our young people, a wonderful show of some of the pomp and circumstance and elegance. It was wonderful to see our young people all dressed up and presenting themselves in such a formal way, dining out, as is the tradition in military speak. And so just appreciate Colonel Brown and his entire team for all that they do in general to develop and prepare and support our young people to go out into the world and make their mark in a very real way, but also the things that they're doing, that they did to make this night so special. And so just appreciations all around. And of course, Attorney Riley Collins for blessing us and giving us some words of wisdom. Looking forward again to next year. Board members, you'll recall that you approved last year a plan for increased school administrator compensation. And as a part of that plan, we included performance and retention incentives. And those retention incentives would be for every 5-year increment, every 5-year interval. And so I am very pleased to inform you that this month, just before Christmas, we're paying out nearly $170,000 in school leadership pay incentives. We developed these incentives, this incentive program in part because the state-funded incentive program only applied to teachers and other staff members in schools. The school leaders were not included in that. And unfortunately, since then, the state has discontinued the teacher incentive program, but we've been advocating and will continue to advocate to bring that back because we saw some value in that. But we just think it's hugely important, again, to recognize our school leaders for not only for high performance, but for remaining a part of Jackson Public Schools. We know in some respects it's not easy working in our district. Education, frankly, is not easy. But there are a few challenges that we have that are somewhat unique to us. And I'm very thankful for those really talented folks who could go anywhere and choose to be a part of this work here, not as missionaries, not as saviors, because I don't believe in that foolishness, but because they see this as a place to do some really good work and to be a part of a talented team, and knowing that iron sharpens iron. So I'm just proud of our people. I'm very pleased and very proud that we were able to make this investment in our school leaders. Looking forward to doing more of this over time and showing them the love so that we can continue to get their love and the great talents that they bring. Amen. The crowd goes wild. Wonderful. People are awake. So for many people, I want to talk a little bit about Christmas time and the holidays. For many people, the holidays are joyful times, for most people probably. They're joyful times, and they include spending time with family and friends and exchanging gifts and good food and just all the merriment. But as many of us know, for some, the holidays can be emotionally exhausting. anxiety-producing, and could even trigger some feelings of grief. Many people experience increased stress during the holiday season. And so feeling depressed during the holidays is not uncommon, and even less uncommon as a result of the pandemic, as we are on this side of it. It's important to encourage and check on one another during these times. Allowing them to express their feelings in a safe environment could really help them to navigate these trying times. And this includes our young people. This includes our young people. And so we want to remind everyone throughout the JPS community that partners such as Marion Counseling and the Hines Behavioral Health Services are here to provide support. They can provide mental health support for scholars and for their families. Also, the Mental Health Warm Line is available. It's open from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m., and people can call 601-713-4358. And again, that's 601-713-4358 to be connected with a professional mental health provider. And so we just want to acknowledge that, you know, folks have a range of feelings, and we don't want to miss this opportunity to encourage all of our scholars, their family members, to, if they need some assistance or are feeling the weight of the holidays, to reach out and get support. We don't want to miss this opportunity to encourage folks in that way. As you all know, and as a reminder, Jackson Public Schools will be closed beginning December 22nd. That's Thursday. Beginning December 22nd, and that's through January the 4th, opening on the 5th for the winter break. When scholars and staff return on the 5th, we'll host a virtual convocation event in the morning, and then launch into our regular instructional programming for that day. And so I want to wish everyone a wonderful holiday. I do hope that our scholars and families and team members will take this time to get some rest, and we're very much so looking forward to seeing everyone when we return. And lastly, board members, did you know that we have a 6th grade visual arts scholar at Bailey, and Ida B. Wells, APAC, who won the national Mott's Crayola Back to School Design Contest? Did you know that? I'm an educator. That's what I'm here for, so I want to make sure you know these things. This award is a tremendous honor because the commemorative packaging will be made from this winning design for Mott's apple juice boxes.
Awesome.
How dope is that? At this time, Wells APAC Principal Dr. Kesher Love Rankin will join us to tell us more about this extraordinary scholar. Dr. Rankin.
Good evening, members of the board.
Good evening.
Superintendent Dr. Green and our entire administrative team. At this time, I'm going to ask Sim Powell to come and stand out front so everyone can see you. Thank you all so much for this opportunity. We are so very proud of Sims, and I'm just going to read a little bit about Sims. He is a visual arts scholar at Ida B. Wells and a 6th grade student at Bailey APAC. Mott's Applesauce and Crayola recently sponsored a nationwide back-to-school design contest where students will design the cover of an applesauce packet or a juice box. Sims was chosen as one of 3 national finalists in the apple juice box category and then won the national vote. Wow. He is receiving 2 scholarships totaling $15,000, a $494 Crayola package, and his design will be made into a commemorative packaging for Mott's apple juice boxes. His design, featuring a tree with apples in the shape of juice boxes, was created in his visual art classes at Wells APAC with his arts teachers, Rena Moore, Department Chair Elise Payne, and Rebecca Wilkerson. While Sims is being honored here today for his artistic merit, he is also known for his hard work and effort that he puts into everything he does. Besides his numerous awards, he even has artwork published. Sims is an amazing gardener and a phenomenal young chef around Jackson. He has even had the opportunity to cook for Elvis in Belhaven and had a cameo on ESPN's True South episode about Jackson's restaurants adapting during the water crises. Altogether, Sims is an amazing example of the talent found among our JPS scholars. His favorite subjects are science and art. He is grateful for the arts program at Wells APAC and for his teachers who made this opportunity possible. He is here today with his mother, Joy Parikh. Please stand, Ms. Parikh. And his father, Greg Powell, who is a teacher at Murrah High School. And his brother, Jasper, who is a 5th grader at Wells APAC and a visual arts student as well. Congratulations, Sims, for this wonderful accomplishment.
Awesome.
We are so proud of you, and thank you so much.
We have the coolest scholars, I tell you. Jeez, Sims is doing all the things, making me feel a little underachieved here. Thank you so much, Sims. Thank you so much, Mom and Dad, for being here with us and helping us to celebrate him. Of course, to Ms. Payne and Dr. Rankin. We just really appreciate the work that y'all are doing at Wells. Really appreciate you, Sims, for sharing your gift and your accolades with us. And with that, Dr. Sivak, it concludes my comments this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Green. Several things before we move on the agenda that I just want to shout out this evening in the superintendent's report and in the board report. First, you mentioned the event at Callaway High School. I just want to lift up the communications team. I actually first saw that on the news the evening after it was it went on, and also got to shout out the facilities team because it was clear to me that it was shot in one of our newly renovated libraries, and so. Just being on the news, a great event, advancing science, technology, engineering, math, our students front and center in a beautiful space. That doesn't happen by accident. Often we hear about how we got to tell our story, well, we're telling it, and we're telling it well. Want to shout out the middle college. I would argue the middle college is trending on social media. At least I've seen a lot of likes and engagement, and I also know that generated some interest from the mayor's office. Night of the Stars was wonderful. I was joined by Mrs. Johnson and Ms. Thompson that evening. I would argue that at a time in our city when we need symbols, not even just symbols, but demonstrated opportunities, moments of hope, that it's the most prominent example in our whole city. So thank you to everyone who made that night special. Ms. Hilliard, thank you for representing the board at the JROTC Gala. Again, a place where you just see excellence amongst our scholars every year, year after year, and to the whole team that makes that possible. Dr. Green also mentioned the meeting around strategic resourcing. I was fortunate to go to that meeting at Galloway Elementary. It was really well done. And Dr. Green, one thing I would ask is, I know there was a presentation that was shared that had lots of data. It was a culmination of a fair amount of work. If you could share that with the board, and we may even put that on the website. It was a public meeting, so think through how we can make that information accessible. Again, because a lot of information there. There were probably 75 to 100 people. Someone may have the actual attendance, but it was well attended, not just by district staff, but by community members, parents. I mean, it was a diverse cross-section of our community. It also provided the opportunity not just to get information, but to talk to people afterwards, to get the opinions, not just the people in the front of the room, but also in the back of the room. I know there's going to be more. I know we talked at our work session around community engagement, around our strategic resourcing. This was the first of what I think will be many of these opportunities. And we know that our best work is done when we engage this way, when we go out, when we meet people where they are, and listen. So thank you for pulling that together and launching that effort. I believe that was all of them, and I'll just take a moment of personal privilege to shout out Sims. I actually have had Sims cuisine, and it was everything that Dr. Rankin mentioned and more. So keep your eye on him on Facebook. There are times when you can buy his pastries and others, and we're just so proud of you and just look forward to seeing all the good things to come. With that, we will move on in our agenda. Ms. Williams shared that we don't have any public comment. And so I just remind people that community members who would like to make public comments should email their request to Rosalind Williams at roswilliams@jackson.k12.ms.us no later than 4 p.m. the day of the meeting, or appear in person in the boardroom no later than 5:15 the day of the meeting. Of course, public comments are very important to the board, and board members can always be reached at our email addresses, which are on the JPS website. Now we have information-only items. I don't have any board reports, so we will go on to the next item, which I believe Mrs. Marshall-Thomas will share with us. This is feedback from principal coaches regarding the clear bag policy. Mrs. Marshall-Thomas.
Great evening, everyone.
Good evening.
As you recall, a few weeks ago, we brought a clear bag policy. You all requested feedbacks. At our last meeting, our scholars engaged their classmates to provide feedback, and then we also stated that we would also provide you with school staff feedback on the policy. So at this time, we will have our principal coaches to come and share data that they've gathered from divisions. So you will have Ms. Linda Murray, who represents Division 1, Elementary Division 1. Ms. Bridges, DeLacy Bridges, represents Elementary Division 2. Mr. Calvin Culver, Middle School Division, and then Dr. Buchanan representing the High School Division.
Great evening again to Board President, board members, Superintendent Dr. Green, and the community members that are present tonight. So we will be sharing with you some of the data collected from survey responses that were conducted, and we got responses from principals, teachers, and other classified staff on the elementary division level, middle and high school divisions. So we will be sharing with you some of the percentages of those data that were collected, and we will pretty much focus on the agree or disagree of those particular questions that were surveyed by the staff members in those particular divisions. Okay, y'all can when I talk. Okay. All right. Teamwork. All right. There it is. So the very first question, you click to it. And this data was collected from only the Elementary Division 1 staff. And if you see here, we have 235 responses. The question is, do you feel that school safety is a concern among students at your school? with 54% of staff members agreeing and 46% of staff members that did not agree that school safety is a concern among students. Some of the reasons, overwhelmingly, elementary division staff members they feel that schools are safe, and they overwhelmingly feel that there is not a need for clear book bags. But there were a small percentage of staff members that felt like there is a need. And so I'll just kind of focus more on those particular statements. For instance, students are bringing inappropriate items to school that has caused students to attend alternative placement programs. Having a clear bag policy will help alleviate this issue to some extent. Do you feel safe at school? Again, 235 responses, 80% agreeing and 20% disagreeing. And some of those responses also include those that felt like their schools were safe, and then with a small percentage feeling that it was not safe. And the biggest concern was would be the area surrounding the school could inadvertently affect the school's safety. In many instances, things that occur outside of the school could carry over into the building by students, basically student disagreements. Do you feel that metal detectors are effective? I just want to point out that we don't have metal detectors on the elementary level. So even though we don't have metal detectors, the perspective here is that 66% feel like they are effective, while 34% feel like they're not effective. Do you think that weapons are brought to school by students? And here, 85% feel like weapons are not brought to school, while 15% feel like weapons are brought to school by elementary students. Most of the times, from my experience with elementary students, those weapons may consist of small items like sharp objects or kitchen knives or something like that, but never firearms or drugs. And here are some thoughts on clear bag policy. We do not have clear bag checks on the elementary level, but here are some thoughts on some of the staff members that participated in the survey. They feel like clear bags are not necessary for elementary students, or some felt like it would be a great idea, that we do not know what students are being exposed to at home and what they will try to bring to school. And then even somebody feeling like there should be a mandatory book bag policy would be a great start as a precautionary measure to prevent drugs or weapons being brought to school. What safety procedures will you add if not in agreement with clear book bags? Some feel like there's a need of safety officers for all students and book bag checks if possible. And somebody felt like that security officers are needed in our schools, and there should be a mandatory security guard officer. So if you notice here, this mostly focused around putting security officers in the elementary schools. What are some strategies that could be used to improve school safety at your school? There should be, again, we're focusing on campus police and security officers in the elementary schools, with somebody thinking that a clear book bag policy would help with security and reinstating safety officers again. And so now I have Ms. DeLacy Bridges will share with you some of the results from Division II elementary schools.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Continuing on with our presentation for Elementary Division II, we had a total of 288 responses, and we used the same tool throughout, surveying administrative staff, certified staff, and classified staff members. To the first question of whether or not there is a feeling that school safety is a concern among students, we had roughly 68% to answer stating that they either strongly agree or agree. Additionally, there was a combination of 32% indicating that they disagreed or that they strongly disagreed with that statement. Potential reasons that were listed that represent a cross-section of those write-in responses. A lack of visible presence of safety officers, having to have several lockdowns due to shootings around the schools, and students are now so society-oriented and easily influenced by negative things that they often bring their energy to school. The second question, again with 288 responses, was whether or not staff members feel safe at their schools. And we had about 66% who either strongly agree or agree with that statement of feeling safe, and roughly 34% who indicated that they either disagree or strongly disagree with feeling safe while at school. And again, a cross-section of those responses indicated that safety is always a top priority in our building. The front office does a great job at securing the front door and keeping us updated if anything goes wrong, and feeling that I have to leave with others and leave my classroom before it gets dark due to limited lighting. Again, as Ms. Murray stated, in the elementary division, we do not utilize metal detectors in the buildings. However, the responses given indicated that 68% indicate that they believe that metal detectors are effective, while 32% do not. Do you think that weapons are brought to school by students? Roughly 81% indicate no, and only about 19.1% indicate yes. Do you think that drugs are brought to your school by students? Roughly 87% indicate no, and 13% indicate yes. The thoughts on the policy represented were, I agree with the clear bag policy. Someone else, we saw a lot of people who indicated they're on the fence. Although I understand that it can decrease bringing weapons and other items to school that are against the policy, students deserve privacy, and having clear backpacks would go against that. Again, it's cool, however, I'm not sure how and what parents would feel, because it still would not prevent people from bringing items in their pockets or jackets. Safety procedures that might be added instead of clear book bags: employ full-time safety officers on every campus, add daily backpack checks by campus enforcement, and add metal detectors at main entryways at schools manned by safety officers. Strategies that could be used to improve school safety might be to place highly capable and well-trained resource officers in each school and have them highly visible, improve or repair facility issues related to security and campus safety, lighting, cameras, doors, windows, etc., and possibly the use of an anonymous reporting system in schools for students to report when there are inappropriate items being brought to school. And next, I'll turn it over to Mr. Culver, our middle school mentor.
Great evening, everyone. To follow along with the format that has been placed before you, the middle division, we have 10 middle schools on 9 locations at the present time. Same thing, a little bit different once we move to the secondary as far as some of the questions being answered here. So as you can see here, do you feel that school safety is a concern among students at your school? So this is the adult perspective of the scholars. And of this, we have 70% that agree to this, with 30% disagreeing. So we have 70% that agree or strongly agree that there's a concern among students in the school. Some of the reasons: we have potential drugs and weapons, community issues that are brought into the school on the weekends, and different things throughout the neighborhoods. One thing that we saw come up because of the surroundings of the school, that they say there are too many doors in the buildings where an intruder could come, enter, and teachers have to constantly make sure that those doors are secured. The second question: do you feel safe at your school? This is the adult perspective. Once we came here, 65.5% of our adults do feel safe in the school, with 34.5% that do not feel safe. Some of the reasons, at times the doors are propped open, and you'll see that running across the secondary. We have staff members who get a text message from their colleagues saying, hey, open the door, and things of that nature, which is a safety issue. Our staff checks backpacks daily, and scholars are required to go through metal detectors. So this is a positive here of the reasoning that we do feel safe. One other thing where employees say that they're knowledgeable of the practices, rituals, and routines, and make sure that we follow the procedures to ensure that our scholars are safe. When we look at the metal detectors, we do have metal detectors in the majority, well, all of the middle schools. Some may have more than one. They may have one at the front door, back door, where some will only have one at the front entrance. So here we have no 52.8%, where we have 47.2. When we've had some professional developments before, though, safety officers came over, there is a difference in the tones that are emitted when the detectors go off. So one of the recommendations that we see, or we've spoken about, making sure that not only the safety officers that are sitting at there, but we make sure that they are trained and understand the different tones that are passed through. Do you think that drugs are brought to your school by students? We have 66.7% that say yes, 33.3% that say no. The thought process, the question here, we were not able to quantify. However, we had to go through the verbal responses and the short answer responses to actually see, and we captured a few things there. Some say that they believe it will help with the items being brought into the school. Some think that it may work with the elementary because the book bags, the amount of books that the high school scholars have to have, the middle school have to have, it's too many books to go in the clear book bag. And then they say there may be a possibility of book bags being mixed up, not being able to identify your own book bag. So safety procedures that you would add, more security, metal detectors that work, working cameras, regular testing of metal detectors, mandated daily security checks on all doors and windows, more serious discipline for students who try and fight with teachers or other administrators. If a metal detector goes off, safety officers assume that it is a phone and moves on. However, that goes back to the training that we spoke about. As long as the safety officer is aware of the tone that goes off, that will let them know if they should go to further measures. Some strategies that were shared with us: more officers, better security checks for students, cameras, better locks on doors, safety training for teachers along with hands-on scenarios. And of course, this was one that popped up multiple times: resource officers rather than safety officers. So we know that resource officers are actually not law enforcement officers who can carry a weapon versus the safety officers. And then they say we should collaborate with JPD.
All right, and rounding up for the high school division, we had 248 respondents. Do you feel that school safety is a concern among students at your school? And these are staff members speaking on behalf of students, and that had close to 80% of staff members believing that safety is a concern for students. Some of the reasons: not enough safety officers, many safety officers are ineffective and need to be trained, openness of the campus, propping open of doors, students letting other students or intruders in, and then what we've heard, I think, across the division, confrontations from the community or neighborhood are brought into the school. And then in regards to the teachers and their own perception of safety in the school, we had close to 50%, or a little over 50%, agree, red and blue, yes, 50% feeling safe, so leaving another half of our respondents who don't feel safe at school. And some of those reasons were the same reasons that the students had, which is the openness of the campus, too many ways to enter the unsecured doors, safety officers, when present, are not responsive, and students, their knowledge of students bringing unauthorized items into school daily. Do you feel that metal detectors are effective? 43% say yes, the majority saying no. Do you think that weapons are brought to school by students? An alarming 80% of our staff members do believe that, and so that belief may become from knowledge of students who have had disciplinary action or feedback that they get from students that may or may not be credible. Do you think that drugs are brought to your school by students? Over 90% of our staff do believe that drugs are brought into the school. Thoughts on the clear bag policy? Good in theory, but items can still be hidden. A mandatory clear bag policy would significantly enhance school safety. However, most of them don't have the capacity to hold the large items. Clear book bags are needed because teachers are not properly trained on how to search a book bag. Students can't use lockers. They bring drugs and vapes daily. Students are often caught smoking in the bathroom. So suggestions, more security guards that monitor the halls and entrances. I think you all heard from our students a few weeks back, and when we looked at specifically the data, students specifically at Murrah, because right now Murrah is the only high school with the alarms on specifically identified doors that are not for use. On the survey for Murrah students, some of their reasons for feeling safe, they specifically cited those doors that had alarms. So remember, this again is from across the division. So staff members were speaking to having doors locked and the alarms to kind of prohibit entry. The hiring again of resource staff to serve as hall monitor, restroom monitor, supervise classes when teachers need to attend IEP meetings or use the restroom, and random searches throughout the school day. Just wanting to speak on behalf of the high school principals, which I promised I would do. There's also a concern that we do check we do book bag checks this every morning. We use as much staff that is available, but on average we lose probably about 150 minutes a week from first and fifth block to check those bags. And the more alarming piece is when you all heard from students, they spoke to wanting more intense bag searches. They referenced in those surveys padding of the bags. So that's 150 minutes of instructional time lost, and that is with us trying to move the check-in expeditiously when we know that they are suggesting even more intense searches. So the implications overall from across the division, there are safety concerns across the division. Some are consistent, but clearly there are concerns across all divisions. Perceptions of safety vary across the demographics. What we heard a lot from students is, well, I think the teachers, the administrators, they're doing everything we can, but stuff is going to happen. That was kind of conveyed across their survey, so there's almost an expectation of things to happen. So there's a perception in safety. I can say it's a concern and feel safe, and then that goes on to like normalized behaviors that, you know, sadly we wouldn't want them to normalize. But we realize the need to kind of explore safety and what that looks like, because the perceptions are different from staff to students. There are outliers with specific schools that weren't further studied. So for example, with high schools, there was a high school where it was closer to 80% of the staff felt safe, where the other high schools, it was closer to 40 or 50%. So there's implications for more intense discussions, specifically on the high school division, what's happening at that school, what's leading to that feeling of support. And then solutions are not one size fit all, so we must have an individualized approach to address safety as we notice these issues. And that is all. Thank you all for your time.
All right, thank you for all of this information. Board members, are there any questions, comments? I have a couple questions. First of all, thank you all for the data and the information. Very helpful. Just for context, you mentioned 150 minutes lost. What is a school day for instructional minutes?
330 minutes.
330.
So really speaking to check-in school for high school class starts at 8:30. We probably go over about 30 minutes before we clear a check-in. Doesn't really count late buses in that, but even with our students that are on campus before 8:30, they're arriving close to 8:40, 9 o'clock after they go through check-in and then get breakfast and then make it to class. So 30 minutes times 5 days a week. That's that first and fifth block being affected with check-in.
Okay, that's helpful. So almost a half a day of instruction. The other question is a data question. Thank you, Dr. Buchanan. Mr. Culver, you mentioned you weren't able to quantify around the clear bag. So I know when the students were here 2 weeks ago, they actually had percentages around support for clear bags or not. I noticed we didn't, so did we just not ask that question?
And that's what I was saying. The survey that we administered did not have a question that would quantify that ask if you were in favor or not in favor. So that's something that we can look at bringing back around and actually asking that question. So that's why I made that statement.
Okay.
Because what we had was an open-ended response question there where we can further look into that and get in that data for you.
Okay, that's very helpful. So based on a review of the responses, would you say, what would you say?
Me personally, I had 180 respondents, and it was about 50-50 or maybe 60-40, some approving, but as stated, there were some that dealt with, you know, how am I going to know it's my book bag or his book bag, seeing from a distance if I'm trying to hurry and just grab, I grab this one instead of mine. So some were in favor of the clear bag policy. Some were concerned with the privacy. You know, they spoke about, and even though you see in the policy that there's a 5x7 bag, because they were concerned with the young ladies for the privacy and that, but they were still concerned, you know, is that enough? So, you know, like I said, we would have to circle back around to actually ask that question to see a percentage of approval.
And for high school, the majority were for.
Were for, okay, that's helpful. And then one other just observation, comment in terms of moments of congruence in the comments. It seems that among students and faculty that improvements with our school resource officers, campus security, our people who are tasked with those responsibilities, that there seems to be a consensus around that being an area that we need to work on. Would there be agreement?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I have a question.
Please, Ms. Hilliard.
Thank you. You mentioned some of the schools don't have metal detectors. Is it because they are inoperable, or is it that they've never been there?
We just don't have them in elementary. We've not implemented them in elementary schools.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And so I want to know, and thank you for all the information. I think it's extremely, extremely helpful. I want to know how this is going to affect the recommendation that the district has brought in terms of the policy. Have we gotten to that point? What are going to be the next steps?
No, we're still processing based on this feedback, period. We're still processing based on this feedback.
Okay. That's helpful.
Yeah.
I really, honestly, I really do appreciate all of the information that you've brought. I think it's, we obviously have a lot of concerns around safety. Some that maybe we would not have known about had we not started this conversation. I did have a question for Dr. Buchanan around the backpack searches. Can you describe what that process is like?
When students enter their, in our morning area, there's a table to the right of the metal detector, and the process is similar across the division. All devices are supposed to go in the bags, and that's so the metal detector will only go off for, we spend a lot of time, okay, your keys are in there, your AirPods are in there. So all devices go in your bags go through the table, staff go through the bag, you come through the metal detector. If the metal detector doesn't go off, you get your bag, go on to breakfast. If it does, you step to the side where you are wand. If the wand makes a sound, indicating metal, you are patted down. And just depending on the findings of that, but that's every student that comes through. So we have one area where, students who are on time, so that's beginning at, should be 8 o'clock, but maybe 7:50, they come through that area. Then what's the tardy time, which is 8:30, it comes through the front, which is the same procedure. But some of the students in the surveys indicated gaps with that process, because when students are late past that 9 o'clock that staff is up there, well, we know our safety officers can't search without the presence of an administrator. So that's radioing for an administrator. So students spoke to gaps in it, because as students enter throughout the day, they may or may not be searched unless an administrator is present to assist with that process. So.
And is this the same process at all the high schools, or
It is.
It is?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
And then sort of like, because I know you have Power APAC kids that come up, is that search process still going on when they come from?
It is not.
Okay.
It is not.
And then as other individuals come into buildings, as adults come into buildings throughout the day, what's that process like?
It's a radio call. For example, there's strong odors of marijuana, so usually an administrator is called. And so that's whoever hears the radio out of the 5 administrators, specifically at Mara, but not 100% of the time is someone able to get to the front. So,
okay, that's helpful too.
So, board members, you're hearing the complexity of even the metal detectors, right? It's not just simple, have everybody walk through there. There's a whole process that, frankly, is done better in some places than in others. More consistently in some places and at some times than in others. That's just our reality. And so all the calls for more safety officers, and actually I'm hearing more and more, not just safety officers, but resource officers. There are huge resource allocation implications there. This time, I hadn't heard the amount of time quantified that's used to do the search process is huge. And I don't know how much y'all recall, thankfully we don't get a ton of the complaints at the start of the year, but there's a lot of frustration at the start of the year with the, lines backed up as folks are dropping their kids off, and, folks just getting used to the process all over again. It's a challenge. And the high schools, with the volume of young people coming into the building, they're using teachers and other people to try to support that search process. So, I hear all the, you might mix my bag up, or my privacy is at issue here, but like, we're looking for solutions to not have a half day taken up in searching bags. Because if we don't do this, then why do we even have the metal detectors? Because they go off all the time. Then what? So, your question is a good one. Where are we with the policy? Like, I can't sit here and tell you I'm going to snatch it. I'm like, forget it. We won't just do it. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, we need that plus 5 other things. We're committed to go back and think some more about, how do we do this? Is this the thing? If not this, then what? But, at some point, in order to do a lot of what folks are asking for, it's going to cost more money. For more people, for better trained people, for perhaps folks with different credentials. That's more. That's going to cost us more. So I don't have the answer right now, but it's not something that we're going to walk away from. We know too much to walk away from it.
Yes, and we spent a full Saturday talking about strategic resourcing.
Yes, sir.
And looking ahead, the decisions we'll need to make as a district in terms of what our footprint looks like, how we how we exist in buildings, and this is a fundamental question. And so, you know, while we are talking about how we fund the district of the future, what I'm hearing from our administrators, our teachers, our students, is that safety's got to be included in that. And so I think as a board, we're committed to going all the way. This is part of the process, which is incredibly helpful. And I guess my response to that is this conversation is independent of the strategic resourcing one.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I am extremely glad that we're having it.
Yes.
You know, this is.
I mean, frankly, we're learning some things too.
Yeah.
As we delve more deeply into this, some of the nuances and gaps in places, but also perceptions and feelings, because all of that matters. I do want to thank these leaders, leaders among leaders, for your work in gathering the data, presenting it today, and doing it in a way that allows us to grapple with what's there. I hope you hear from me, from us, and from your board that we're not just like, you know, hearing and glossing over very real issues that you all and your teams have to grapple with day in and day out. And knowing you as people and educators, you know, as much as we want all of our scholars to be super successful academically, we also need them to be alive. So we're clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, board members, again, thank you all for sharing that information. Very, very helpful. We are going to move on to our information action items. We have the request to approve the corrective action plan for Jackson Public Schools. Dr. Merritt will provide us with this update and with this request.
Great evening to Dr. Sivak, Board of Trustees, Dr. Green, and JPS family. I have before you, prior to asking for approval on the corrective action plan, I have a short PowerPoint that I will review with you. And as Mr. Johnson gets it uploaded, I will begin.
Sounds good.
So the objectives, of course, of the presentation is, one, to show our progress towards the corrective action plan, or what we refer to as the CAP, and to show the changes that have occurred from last year to this year. Of course, accreditation standards are set forth by the Mississippi Department of Education to show their definition of what a good school, how it looks. Just as a refresher, the investigative audit was conducted from September 6, 2016 through July 31st, 2017. As a result of that, JPS was found to be in violation of 24 of the 32 accreditation standards, along with accreditation policy 2.1. As you all are aware, our accreditation status at this time is that of probation, and as of today, we have cleared a total of 41 total standards and substandards. Now we are currently working on clearing the remaining 4 standards that are on record. And at this time last year, we had seven standards that we were working to clear. We did clear 3 of those, and I just want to talk about a major one that we cleared, which was accreditation policy 2.1. That was a very heavy, and that's a policy versus a standard, so it's a difference. But that deals with all of your personnel data and things of that nature. Ms. Lyons and her team worked extremely hard to clear that, that standard, and so I do want to recognize her for her work done with that. as well as Standard 16 came off, which was the dealt with state testing, our plan for that. Dr. Cheeks did the work to clear that, as well as principals, because it was going out into the buildings and monitoring the implementation of our test security plan. So we do want to commend our principals that when they were monitored last year during the testing season of the success they had there. And then I want to commend Mr. Caldwell at Henley Young for clearing the findings there. And I believe as a result of that, they're no longer under a consent decree from the state side or the federal side. So he has done a great job with that. And so as a reminder, a standard is not clear until the substandards are cleared as well. So some of these standards, they have substandards. So as you can see, one that we're working on now is records and the residency requirements. And so 6.1 deals with residency requirements, whereas 6.2 deals with immunizations. As of Friday, I believe that that MDE visited 10 schools, and we had 7 of 10 to clear. There are still some other schools that are on there, but we're working hard, and we want you all to know to clear standards 6 and 8. So again, and this is grouped by chief. What's remaining under the staff, of course, accreditation policy 2.1 came off this year, and what's remaining is standard 6 and standard 8. Under the general counsel, standard 1, and of course that deals with governance, and we've always been informed that once we clear the other standards that this will clear. As a side note, and you may saw this note in the executive summary, as a result of the single audit based on fiscal year 21, there were some citations with standard 4.1. We will clear those standards once another single audit is done. Of course, that will be on fiscal year 22. However, once we clear the standards that are on the remaining standards that are on record, this will not keep us from earning our full accreditation. So I want to note that. However, if this finding remains for 3 years or more, if the single audit comes back another year and it comes back 3 consecutive years, it can impact our rating. So we do want to just note that. And so I know that Mr. Burke is working hard to ensure that that will not occur. But we're hoping by May that we'll have fully satisfied this corrective action plan. And of course, with facilities in Standard 30, there are 4 schools that remain. I reviewed the document in detail in terms of the findings and what I know that we have done through the bond program, and I feel confident that we can clear those in the next couple of months. And just to name the schools, they are Forest Hill, Jim Hill, Callaway, and Bailey. And so we are happy to report all of the standards that were that are under the deputy superintendent, once standard 16 cleared, have been satisfied. So kudos to Dr. Cormack and his team for that is a burden off of his shoulder for sure. And so we celebrate that. Key takeaways, the big key takeaway, we have 4 standards remaining, and we are working hard to ensure that we clear those by the end of this year. Of course, we will continue to work cross-functionally with other team members to support with the implementation of the CAP, and there are other standard leaders that are just ensuring that we are doing what we're supposed to do to make sure that we don't have this experience again. We do want to note also that MDE continues to be a partner in helping us clear the standards. They have been very patient, as you know, but they are working collaboratively with us to ensure that we do this by the end of the year. So we appreciate and we do want to note that. So at this time, I do recommend the CAP for approval.
Thank you, Dr. Merritt. Board members, any questions, comments?
Dr. Sivak, this is Doc Harrison. I just wanted to say that I know I'm very pleased with the progress we've been making. I know this team and previous teams, since we were deemed required to be under the corrective action plan, that a lot of hard work has gone into getting us where we are today. So I just want to thank everyone, Dr. Merritt and your team, who have worked so hard to keep making progress. And I'm confident we'll be there by the end of the year.
Yes,
This school year. Thank you, Dr. Sivak.
Thank you, Dr. Hairston. I'll just echo those points, Dr. Merritt, and just thank you and shout you out. You know, one through line of all the work that this board has been, with which this board has been engaged, is your engagement with this corrective action plan. Before Dr. Green was here, you were beginning to repair the relationship with MDE, and so I just want to acknowledge your dedication to it, your dedication to the district, and we look forward to celebrating getting through this corrective action plan when that day comes.
We look forward to burning it at the end of the year.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'd say we look forward to burning it at the end of the school year.
I'm sure you do. You are rather. That's the end of the school year that
yes,
we have until then. Oh,
Right,
yeah.
it is our goal to
Okay.
finish it really before then, Mrs. Hilliard.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
yes. And thanks for
Yeah,
all
we'll
of
have to
you
have
all,
a CAP
your hard
completed
work.
celebration.
Yes, we have a big celebration.
Well, we've got some skill in celebrating, so I think we can use that skill in this way.
And the other thing that I want to note, as you look at the standards that were cleared under the deputy superintendent, this is another thing that underscores as we talk about our academic improvement that we've made this year. These things align. As we have cleared all of those instructional standards, you have seen our students' performance increase. So there is alignment as we do this work. And so I do want to note that as we talk about this, you know, there's work going on, hard work taking place.
Without a doubt. All right, board members, is there a motion to approve the corrective action plan?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Johnson has moved, Mrs. Thompson has seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Merritt. Next, we have the request to approve the agreement between the Children's Defense Fund and the Jackson Public School District. Mr. David Schomer, are you going to do this one? Okay, Dr. Merritt will present this one.
All right, the administration recommends review as information only the 3-year agreement between Jackson Public Schools and the Children's Defense Fund to cover CDF Freedom School program fees, as well as to provide training and materials for 9 teachers, 9 servant leader interns, and 2 administrators during the spring semester in preparation for our CDF Freedom School, which will take place in June each summer through 2026. This agreement will be a renewal. The CDF Freedom School is made possible through a U.S. Office of Elementary and Secondary Education $3.75 million Innovative Approaches to Literacy grant. Of course, there is a project director, which is one of our retired principals, as well as Ms. Wisserton, who helps support the grant in district. But we are, I'm bringing this forward for review.
Thank you, Dr. Merritt. Appreciated the data that was shared as well on the effectiveness of the program in the summer. Board members, any questions or comments? Is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved, Mr. Figurs has seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Next, we have the request to approve the job description for athletic facilities manager. Dr. Cormack will present this information.
Good evening to members of the board, Dr. Green, and JPS community. The administration is recommending the approval of an athletics facility manager This would be a job description that was created through the collapse of several custodial vacancies, and in particular would be a dedicated role to support the recent renovations and soon-to-be completed renovation at Hughes Field. In response to some board questions, we believe that there is a great deal of work to help to maintain and upkeep the recent renovations and improvements that have been made at Hughes. But of course, like other employees in the district, they could be deployed by the Executive Director of Athletics to support other upkeep projects within the athletics department. I didn't share previously, we also have a vacancy within the athletics department, a dedicated equipment manager that supports some of the upkeep of lawns that need to be cut and other game day maintenance projects. We are looking very rigorously to fill that vacancy that will support district-wide upkeep as well. So we encourage your support of this item.
Thank you, Dr. Cormack. Board members, any questions, comments? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved, Mr. Figurs has seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Cormack. Next, we have the request to approve the agreement between the Boys and Girls Club of Mississippi and the Jackson Public School District. Dr. Sanisha Stokes, our Executive Director of our Office of Innovative Strategy, will present this information. Dr. Stokes.
Good evening, Dr. Sivak, President, Superintendent Dr. Green, Board of Trustees members, and JPS colleagues and family. The administration is recommending the approval of an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Central Mississippi. Generally speaking, Boys and Girls Club of America, a nationally recognized organization, provides mentorship, meals, and meaningful life experiences to more than 4 million kids and teens annually. The Boys and Girls Club of Central Mississippi is dedicated to offering children a safe, inclusive place for them to learn, grow, and participate in out-of-school time learning experiences that build character, leadership, and healthy living. The Office of Innovative Strategy welcomes this partnership of providing after-school academic and enrichment activities that prepare our scholars to achieve high school graduation with post-secondary college and career plans. With this, we urge your support.
Thank you, Dr. Stokes. Board members, any questions, comments? Again, thank you for the assessment of the programs. That was one of the longest and most in-depth assessments of kind of student, parent perceptions of the program that I've seen around some of our programming after school. So thank you. Board members, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Oh.
Ms. Thompson has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Stokes. Next, we have the request to approve the RFP 2022-2024, our pool of partners. This is Green Ninja and Ruby 12 Consulting. Dr. Regina Scott, our Executive Director of School Support, will present this information.
Good evening, Board President Dr. Sivak, Superintendent Dr. Green, board members, and JPS family. The administration recommends review and approval of the lead partner contracts to provide professional development and instructional coaching support in response to RFP 2022-24 for a pool of partners to provide professional development and coaching support to Green Ninja and Ruby K-12 Consulting. Green Ninja will provide job-embedded and/or content-specific coaching to identified science coaches, teachers, curriculum leads, and/or administrators. Ruby K-12 Consulting will provide job-embedded and/or content-specific coaching support to instructional and administrative staff of advanced academic courses and/or programs.
Thank you. And I'm looking at my notes here. Is it Dr. Scott or Dr. Clay Scott? Which do you prefer?
Dr. Scott is okay. Dr. Scott.
Is it okay, or is it what you prefer?
It's fine. It's perfect.
Okay. Then I'm going to go with that. Board members, are there any questions? Okay, hearing none. Is there a request to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Johnson has moved, Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. Next, we have the request to approve the renewal agreement between Curriculum Associates Elevation and the Jackson Public School District Program for English Learner Students. Dr. Scott will present this information once again.
The administration recommends review and approval of the Elevation Program, a data management platform for our English learners. Elevation is a program that houses our EL students' data. It will allow us to keep accurate data on the students, and then it provides customized reports in which our teachers can go in and submit information and upload digital data for documentation purposes.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Board members, any questions, comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved, Mr. Figurs has seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Next, we have the request to approve the agreement between IXL and the Jackson Public School District. Dr. Scott, I believe this is your final one.
Yes. The administration recommends approval of the web-based program IXL to provide personalized learning for Casey Elementary after-school students. IXL is a web-based program. It provides personalized learning, and the students in that program will be able to get some additional support outside of the programs that are offered during the regular school day. Now, we received 2 questions about this item, and so I'll read those and the responses. In general, how are we cataloging and or tracking all of our after-school programs? The tracking of our after-school programs is maintained by the Office of Innovative Strategies. Presently, Dr. Samicia Stokes maintains data on after-school enrollment, after-school attendance, and scholar writing performance. And this is a middle school after-school pilot. IXL was designated for after-school usage so that it does not interfere with the district's intervention software initiatives used during the regular school day, and namely that's Freckle and Accelerated Reader. So the second question we received was, what do you know about the effectiveness of each in advancing us toward the goals in the strategic plan? Student and parent surveys are the primary measures for effectiveness of after school. As aforementioned, we are piloting the middle school writing program in after school that will look to support MAP ELA performance gains. Spring MAP data is being utilized, and benchmark writing scores will provide the ongoing growth and implementation data. The after-school service providers also convene monthly for professional development and to share anecdotal feedback on their programs. And then finally, the Office of Innovative Strategies conducts weekly site visits to the various after-school sites to offer technical assistance and to observe programming.
Thank you, Dr. Scott. Board members, any questions? I'll just ask a couple. First of all, thank you for the responses. And this may be for you or maybe for Dr. Stokes. I was just going to ask, so it sounds like we do have the ability to, I would be interested in getting a list of all the after-school programs that we have. And it doesn't need to, at some point, it doesn't need to be by next meeting, but in general, what prompted this question on IXL was, so this was one program for one school. I know oftentimes, other times when we've had one program for one school, a question may arise, what's the plan to roll it out across the district to other schools? Or so there's a question that's also around, how did this arrive at Casey? Is there a plan to move it at others? But then it prompted my thinking more broadly, because it seems like we've had a number of requests for after school, and we certainly see the expenditures in the personnel files when they come through. What do we know about our after-school programs when it comes to how they are advancing or not advancing towards the strategic plan goals? How many vendors do we have that are providing after-school services, both human resources and technology. This is getting to be a long list, but I think what's behind the question is it would be great to get an update on our after-school programming and our anything we know and have learned from tracking the expenditures and the results.
And again, to the resourcing conversation, what's the case for continued investment? Is that?
That's consistent. I mean, I think we got to ask that about everything we do.
Yeah. So thank you for that, those questions, and for that nudge, Dr. Sivak. I mean, one of the reasons why we have Dr. Stokes in the role that she's leading, in the work that she's leading, is, you know, up until a couple of years ago, we didn't really have one person who was managing after-school programming, summer programming. Somebody else took it on, and then it was kind of this group effort and all of that. And with all of the moving parts, with us, the programming, the services are not all in-house, as you see. You've been approving, thankfully, all of these partnerships with various vendors and, you know, online tools, et cetera. And so managing all of those partnerships and relationships and tracking, I'm sorry, backing up, managing all those partners and relationships, all the logistics of both after school and summer school, and then tracking the data. You know, does any of this make any difference, or are we just expending a lot of money and time and energy, and children are no better for it? Is the role that Dr. Stokes sits in. And so I'm actually looking forward to us providing to you a clear accounting of the partners and tools and resources that we're pouring into our after-school programming, and again, eventually into summer school. And as you hear, I kind of see them in tandem. As well, the data for the children attending, and at some point, and hopefully not too far out, a tracking of those scholars who were under the tutelage of Boys and Girls Club, or those scholars who were under the tutelage of, you know, or experienced Paradise Sports, or those who experienced Shoestring, or whomever, right? We are, you know, building a more nuanced data system that'll help us to show, just like we do with teachers. You know, all of these students here were taught by Eric Green, so their performance is attached to Eric Green's performance. The same with our after-school and summer school scholars attached to those vendors who are servicing them. And so look forward to being able to share that with you. I'll look to the team. Actually, maybe by the next meeting, we'll have a clear timeline for when you can expect that data, a discussion about the performance. As well, I understand just kind of more on the decision-making, where to pilot, when to pilot. As I had mentioned to Dr. Sivak in our check-in, the flexibilities that we allot for sites based on the programs that are there in the morning, or the leadership that's there, or what have you. There's a lot of things that could impact what pilots are run at a particular school, but happy to share that in more detail with you, and by the next meeting, we'll come back around with a timeline for that.
Thank you, Dr. Green, and thank you, Dr. Scott. Board members, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved, Mrs. Thompson has seconded. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, Dr. Scott. Next, we have a request to approve the agreement. Thank you. Moving too fast. We have the request to approve the agreement between Tougaloo College and the Jackson Public School District Educator Preparation Provider Field Experience Opportunities. Dr. Knowles will present this information.
Right. Good evening, Dr. Green, Board President Sivak, members of the board. The administration is seeking approval of the agreement between Tougaloo College and Jackson Public School District for educator preparation provider field experience opportunities. And we do believe that this rounds out an agreement with all of the local metro area colleges and universities to provide those internship and student teaching opportunities, which also doubles as an opportunity for us to recruit new talent for vacancies within the school district.
Thank you, Dr. Knowles. Board members, any questions, comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Johnson has moved. Mr. Figurs has seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Dr. Knowles. Next, we have the request to approve the agreement between Jackson Hines Comprehensive Health Center and Jackson Public School District. Ms. Amanda Thomas, our Executive Director of Climate and Wellness, will share this information.
Good evening, Dr. Sivak, Board President, Board members, Dr. Green, Superintendent. The administration recommends for approval a memorandum of agreement between Jackson Public School District and Jackson Hines Comprehensive Health Center. This agreement aims to continue the established and guided working relationship between Jackson Hines Comprehensive Health Center and the Jackson Public School District. Jackson Hines has been with us for over 10 years. The Jackson Hines Comprehensive Health Center will continue to provide health services to students using a mobile unit or a designated school-based clinic within the designated schools. They will continue to provide the following services: physical examinations to include height, weight, body mass index, hemoglobin and iron check, vaccinations, dental services, which include oral exams and cleanings, as well as referrals to specialty clinics. And I did provide some data as relates to the services that have been provided for the previous years.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Any board members, any questions, comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Johnson has moved. Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Next, we have the request to approve the agreement between the Mississippi Department of Archives and History and the Jackson Public School District for work at Bailey APAC. Mr. Burke.
Good evening, President Sivak, Superintendent Green, board members, JPPS family. The administration is requesting approval of a memorandum of agreement with the Mississippi Department of Archives and History, Community and Heritage Preservation Grant Structural Restoration for the structural restoration of Bailey APAC Middle School. Bailey APAC is designated as a Mississippi landmark pursuant to Mississippi Code, and Jackson Public Schools was awarded as a part of the Mississippi Community Preservation Grant $370,000 in round 2 of their grant distribution. This project, this money is to go to the permanent structural corrections of the building and to return it to a safe and fully functioning public facility. All this work related to this particular funding has been completed, and as a part of the general requirements of the reimbursement, board has to approve this memorandum of agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Board members, any questions, comments? Ms. Burke, one question. I think this is this the grant? I know a number of years ago we received a federal grant. It was at risk, we were at risk of losing it. It got extended. Does this, I didn't ask this question in advance, but I think there's been I just want to make sure, if it's not, that's fine. But I know there was a federal grant we got for work at Bailey.
Yeah, this is not that.
This is not that?
No, sir.
Okay.
I thought it was a state grant. Sorry.
This is a state.
I meant state.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And this is the second round
of that. Yes.
Okay, so
it's a second round of funding. It's not the second round of that. That one we got, right? We got that one, expended it. This is a second
round appropriated through Mississippi legislation.
Okay. So, and thank you for correcting me on the federal state piece. So this is the second round of state funding for improvements at Bailey. I do know, I think I'm right, at one time there was questions around, it was time bound and we were at risk of losing it.
Yes.
And I think our delegation may have helped us with that. So just, again, just want to lift up the partnership with our legislative delegation, and also just lift up the work is done. And so thanks, Mr. Burke, for your work on that.
Yeah, and the investments being made from several fronts. On the
yes.
Bailey property.
Yeah. All right. So with that, board members, is there a motion to approve this request?
I so move. Second.
Ms. Johnson has moved, Mrs. Thompson has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Was it, I'm sorry, I was, Ms. Hilliard motioned, Mrs. Thompson seconded. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Yes, it right.
All right, we will move on. We have our request to approve the monthly financial report. Mr. Burke, our Chief Operations Officer, will present this information.
Yes, sir. The administration recommends that the board approve the monthly financial report for month ending November 30th, 2022. This report includes your statement of fund balance, your budget status report, your bank reconciliation report, the cash flow statement, and a new section that has been added, other key performance indicators section. The general statement of fund balance begins for district maintenance begins on page 3. This is the general fund section of the report. Primarily, the preliminary ending fund balance as of November 30th was $23,953,612.43. This is approximately $4.4 million higher than this position last year. This position is attributable to the strong ending fund balance that we started with, the $21.9 million that we brought over from the prior year, and then some tight fiscal expenditure controls that have been put in place through the first quarter and now into the second quarter. The district maintenance receipts are higher than expenditures by approximately $2 million. The special revenue funds, these are the funds that are in the fund groups 2000s through 2,999, includes child nutrition on page 6. The title funds, coronavirus response funds, IDA funds, and other special revenue funds on page 7 through 8. These child nutrition still shows a significant balance that's come from operations. They are working through a plan to expend those funds to enhance what we're doing in our cafeterias. Title funds, the coronavirus funds, and the other IDA reimbursable funds still have some large negative balances that you'll see in that fund balance report. But it's somewhere around $2.6 million, but I will indicate to you that as of December 12th, we've requested a drawdown amount of about $6.3 million, so it's still about $4.3 million that has not been requested, and we requested in January. So we're tightening up that reimbursement process. It was much larger in the first months. Now it's getting a little closer together. And I will remind you that those negative balances are covered by general district maintenance and other district maintenance funds until those reimbursements are recovered. On page 12 is your budget status report. Looking at that as of November 30th, 34.79% of our budgeted revenues have been collected. That is equivalent to $65.6 million. As contrast against 33.72% of the expenditures money being expended, and that's about $63.5 million. So we've collected more money, a little bit more money than we've spent out so far this year. And these statistics are consistent, those percentages are consistent with prior year revenues versus expenditures. On page 24 through 26, bank reconciliation report as of October 31st of 2022, all of our district bank accounts are with board-approved depositories, and all those bank statements have been reconciled appropriately and promptly. Cash flow report starts on page 27. As of November 30th, 2022, the ending cash balance in our bank accounts was $9.6 million as compared to $10.7 million in November of 2021. This is roughly 11% less than our prior year position. And then on the final pages of your report are the other management key performance indicator reports. This section will sort of grow, and we'll have some things that will show you trends that are key to our monthly management. So these reports are not exhaustive, but these are the ones that are there now. As of November 30th, I provided you a revenue budget versus actual by functional source and cost object. The headline trends there, again, revenues are higher than last year, about 0.35% over last year, and expenditures are 0.57 less than last year. So those are the highlights.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Board members, any questions, comments? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the financial report?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Johnson has moved, Mr. Figurs has seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Burke.
You're welcome.
Next, we have the consent agenda items, finance. All of the consent agenda items have been reviewed by the board previously, and we've had an opportunity to ask questions of the administration. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items for finance?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved, Mrs. Johnson has seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Next, we have the consent agenda items general. All of the consent agenda items have been reviewed by the board previously, and we've had an opportunity to ask questions of the administration. Are there any further questions? If not, board members, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items general?
I so move.
Second.
So moved.
Ms. Hilliard, can I give that one to Dr. Hairston? All right, Dr. Hairston has moved, Ms. Hilliard has seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next, we have the consent agenda item personnel. All of the consent agenda items have been reviewed by the board previously and have had an opportunity to ask questions of the administration. Are there any further questions? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items personnel?
I so move.
Second.
Ms. Hilliard has moved, Mrs. Johnson has seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Next, there is a consideration to hold an executive session, so I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting for executive session, to consider an executive session.
I so move.
Second.
Mr. Figurs has moved, Mrs. Thompson has seconded. All in favor? Aye. The motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Have a happy holiday. Thank you for all you do for us.